Amy here. I'm back again on our leadership series, and the question I had is some tips on accountability. There are two types of accountability. There's self-directed and then there's leader-directed. I have another video on self-directed, so if you haven't seen that yet and you'd like to see it, feel free to go check it out. The leader-directed accountability, let's talk about a couple of things with regards to that. A few things come to mind when it comes to being able to hold people accountable as the leader. Few things for you to think about. One thing is there's a reason they're part of your organization. Some reason, I mean there's maybe more than one reason too, but there's a reason. People don't do anything for no reason. So if it's a job, and even if they're just there for the money, that's still a reason. If it's a job or a different type of organization and they're there because they want to have an impact, they're there because it helps build their resume, they're there because someone else dragged them there, like there is some reason that they're there, okay? So keep that in mind as we go through this stuff. Another thing to think about is we do not intend to be selfish beings, but the simple fact is that almost anything we do, we want to know what's in it for us most of the time. Even when you're doing those selfless acts like I have a whole blog and webpage on acts of kindness. I totally believe in it. I do my best to constantly be doing those types of things for others, but it still makes me feel good to do it. I still feel like there's an impact on the world for doing that. So that's what's in it for me. There's still something in it for you when you're doing something. So even if it's not making somebody mad, you know, because they want you to do it, you don't want them to be mad, whatever it is, like there's something in it, right? So keep that in mind too. People want to know what's in it for them. And then the last thing is that if you can get, the last key to this would be if you can get people's individual goals or objectives to align with the overall organization's goals or objectives, then that's going to give you more leverage when it comes to trying to hold them accountable to the things that they really need to be getting done, whether that be for their own goals or for the organization's goals, okay? So if I were to sit down and have a conversation with someone because maybe they're not performing at the level that I feel they could be or they should be, maybe not even the standard that you have set up for the organization, it would probably be a conversation along these lines, which by the way, as a side note, if people don't know the standards of the organization or they don't know the mission or they don't know what they're supposed to be working toward, that's really all you got to do to start with. Like make sure that your team knows what you're trying to accomplish, why you're trying to accomplish it. I mean, this is like the vision, right? The vision of the organization, what the objectives are. They have to know those things, the standards. That has to be very clear. So I'm working from the assumption that this stuff's already been covered. If that hasn't been covered yet, you have to do that first. You can't really hold people accountable to something you haven't even shared with them yet, like a standard or a vision or whatever the case may be, okay? So start there. Once I've covered that, if someone's underperforming, then I'm gonna sit down and have a conversation with them, and it's gonna be something along the lines of, you know, tell me how it's going. I first try to assess from their perspective. How do you feel about stuff? You know, how do you feel about the mission or the objectives? Are you aware of these standards? How do you feel about those standards? Really just trying to gauge first how they're feeling about those things. Once I know that, so I know they're clear on what we're trying to accomplish, I know how they feel about the standards, which most times when I have this conversation, they're like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like I don't get a lot of pushback on, you know, the standards that we have or things like that. So once you have that done, then that's where you can also say, now remind me again, what are your main objectives? Like how do we help you? Why are you part of the organization? I just want to make sure I understand all aspects, right? It might be that they're there because they're trying to build their resume. They want something extracurricular on it so that when they go and look for work someday, they've got something to point to. Let's say that that's the example, okay? So they don't necessarily care about the mission or the vision or any of that stuff. All they care about is that they have something to build their resume with, if that were the case. I'm not saying that it's what people are thinking, but it's possible. If that were the case, then next step for me would be I would try to align the two. I would say, well, cool, great, that works out perfectly because here's the thing. And then I would share with them how the things we're trying to achieve or the mission that we have, how by helping us achieve those things is going to make their resume stronger. Because you should all know the resume that just says, oh, it's part of this club. It's not nearly as impressive as a resume that says, oh, I was part of this club and we achieved this and this and this, and then the person can follow up and say, cool, tell me what you were involved in, and they go, oh yeah, I did this and this and this, and you know, it led to that. Like there should be some action there, and having an organization that actually achieved some things, have some accomplishments to point to, is way stronger for a resume than just being like, yeah, I was part of Spanish club, like whatever it was. So, or leadership club, the fact that you learn some things about being a leader doesn't necessarily prove that you actually ever put any of that into action. So then I would remind that person, that's awesome because your goal and the mission of the organization aligns perfectly. Once we achieve these things, you'll be able to put this and this and this on your resume. And then when people ask you in an interview to tell me about it, you're going to be able to tell them exactly how you helped and whatever. Like, you just point that out. Remember, we want to make sure they know what's in it for them. Okay. So that is the next step. And then I would still go back to, cool. So here, you go back to like whatever you're holding them accountable about. So here's what I'm noticing. It's probably our fault. Maybe something wasn't as clear as it could have been, or whatever the case may be. But here's what I'm noticing. Your performance is here. Here's where we need you to be in order to help us achieve this goal, in order to, for you to, it's like if you can wrap it around the whole team, everybody's working towards the same thing. Everybody has the same standards. So we're just asking you to do the same thing that we're asking everybody else to do, kind of thing. So you can have that conversation. And then again, the next step. So the next step is that, like, let's work together on figuring out the next step. Come up with one together. You could have them brainstorm. What do you think the next steps should be? Great. I was thinking maybe some of these things. Maybe pick one or two out of those together, and then get back to me once you get that next step accomplished, and celebrate with them once they do, and then the next step. It's good to keep people focused on just the next step, not the next 10 steps, but what's the next step? Have them accomplishment. Awesome. You rock. High five. What's the next step? Okay. So leader accountability is knowing your mission, your objectives, your standards for the organization, knowing their goals, individual reasons of what's in it for them, is why they're part of it, making those two come together. How does your mission as an organization help them with their individual goals? Okay, helping them figure out the next steps to help you and them accomplish that. And then checking back in with them. If you haven't heard from them, hopefully you'll hear from them. You can celebrate, figure out the next step, or check back in with them, find out how it's going. Hopefully help them celebrate if they got that accomplished, and then figure out the next step. Hopefully this was helpful. I promise this stuff really works. I use it in my own business every single day. We've got a great team. I'm very lucky. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. You can either contact me through the website, or you can just simply email me. I'm happy to answer anything. Go out, be an awesome leader that you are, and we'll talk again soon.